Great. Well, good morning, and first off, welcome to the 2025 Colorado River District Annual Water Seminar. We are very excited to have you here. I have the honor of being the first to welcome you, so thank you for taking the time to be here, to be a part of this conversation. And on behalf of our board of directors, our staff, our team, and our partners across the West Slope, we thank you for taking the time and energy to participate. Every year, this seminar gives us a chance to come together as a community and share information and talk about the realities facing our water future here on the West Slope. And this year, our theme, Across Divides, feels especially important. In the world of Western water, perspectives don't always align, and sometimes that divide is geographic, between upstream and downstream, or between the East Slope and the West. Other times it's technical, between data and real-life lived experience. And often it's political, between policy decisions made far away from the daily impacts felt by farmers and ranchers and communities here at home. Despite these divides, the challenges we face on the Colorado River and in the basin demand that we find common ground. We can't afford to let the differences prevent progress. So that's why conversations like today's really matter. And we'll hear today from a diverse range of voices, experts, policymakers, scientists, and local leaders and water users to examine what's missing, what's misunderstood, and where we can build these bridges. We'll shine a light on the gaps while highlighting innovations, partnerships, and the leadership that's working to close them. At the Colorado River District, our mission is clear. To protect, conserve, and ensure the wise use of Colorado River water for the welfare of Western Colorado. We're guided by our board of directors, one representative from each of our 15 counties, as well as by the water users themselves, through conversations just like the ones we're having here today. Water connects all of us, and the choices we make now will shape the future of our rivers, our farms, our communities, and our economies for generations. So thank you again for joining us. We look forward to this day of learning, of experts. We want to thank our expert speakers and panelists again, and thanks for the dialogue and shared commitment to protecting West Slope water. So one of the things we're going to do today is the way we're going to take questions throughout the day is we're going to use a technology tool called Vvox. It was integrated to our program here, and you'll access it through a QR code on the table tent in the center of your table. So we'll take this moment to get your phones out, scan that little code, and that will take you directly into the app where we'll take questions today. So as each of the speakers and panelists are going through their presentations, the questions and polls will be open, where as questions come to you, you can submit them. And when we come to the questions and answers phase, we'll address them. And I'm afraid through this process, I may not have introduced myself. My name is Matt Abusi. I am the Communications Director at the Colorado River District. And before I introduce some people who will help me welcome us here today, I just want to cover off on a few other things. There's restrooms in the hallway over here, so please feel free. Please silence your phones, and be sure to follow us on the agenda that's printed, available out in the foyer, as well as there have been some minor changes to the agenda that were submitted after we sent these things to print, of course. And that updated agenda is available also on a QR code available on your table on that sheet of paper that says Across Divides. So without any further ado, I'm happy and excited to welcome some people who will help us kick off the day. It's my pleasure to introduce Mark Catlin, who's the president of the Colorado River District Board and state senator for Colorado's District 5. Senator Catlin is a lifelong Western Slope resident from Montrose and brings a deep expertise and experience in water and leadership in agriculture and rural policy. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Matt. Well, good morning. Here we are again, talking to one another about what we're hoping the future will be. I'm thanking you for bringing your ideas and for you coming today. I have a few remarks I'd like to make, and then we'll get on with this. In western Colorado, rivers bring us together. Our rivers on the western slope are more than just water flowing through canyons and valleys. They tie together our communities, our economies, and our way of life. From the headwaters to the state line, the Colorado River and its tributaries unite 15 counties and nearly 500,000 people within this district. Since 1937, the River District has served as the watchdog for western Colorado's resources, advocating for local water users, ensuring Colorado keeps the water it's entitled to, and protecting our communities from over-diversions to the Front Range. The mission is as vital today as it was at our founding, especially in the face of growing demands on our rivers and the impacts of multi-decade drought. The recent effort to permanently protect the Shoshone water rights represents one of the greatest examples of how rivers can bring us together. This effort united an unprecedented coalition of counties, municipalities, agricultural groups, water providers, conservation organizations, chambers of commerce, and bipartisan elected officials from across Colorado. Looking around this room today and seeing so many familiar faces, so many dedicated water leaders, I'm reminded that we can accomplish what we can accomplish when we work together on Shoshone and on a whole lot more issues. As we gather today here at the challenges ahead are significant, but so are the opportunities. If we stay united across basins, political lines, and water uses, we can secure a healthy and sustainable future of the Colorado River and for the people of western Colorado. Because let's remember, in western Colorado, rivers bring us together. Thank you for being here today, and welcome to Grand Junction and to western Colorado. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Senator Catlin. Next, I'd like to welcome a representative from our host at Colorado Mesa University, David Ludlam, who's the Senior Vice President of Communications. As a leading education institution on the Western Slope and a partner and supporter of the River District, we're proud to host this event here at CMU. Welcome, David.
In our work culture, sometimes it's risky to acknowledge that your job is a blast. But it's such an amazing place to work. We have so much fun because of the partnerships that we have, like the one that we have with the River District. It's a true honor and privilege to be able to serve on the executive leadership team with President Marshall, particularly this year as we celebrate our Century Project, our 100 years of CMU. It's been an opportunity for us to look back in time, but we've chosen not to just be sentimental, look back for its own sake. We're looking back 100 years so that we know where we're going. And a lot of times people think about 100 years as being a milestone, a point of arrival, an achievement, but we were looking at it as a launching point. And it's not just a talking point either. I wanted to orient you around a cluster of projects that you probably see as you're on campus today that are our Century Project investments. They represent about $100 million of capital, and like you all do, we're setting the infrastructure in place for the next 100 years here at CMU. So if you think about the Asteria Theater, I hope that many of you had an opportunity to experience that brand new venue. It truly is a world-class experience and the only thing like it in Western Colorado. But right in front of that, just to the east, is a construction project where we're creating a new student dining facility called the Ember Eatery. That'll be an anchoring piece of infrastructure in what we're calling our formation district, the southwest quadrant of campus. And then right adjacent to that are the Centennial Apartments, the Centennial Residence Halls. We're going to be adding 300 new beds to our inventory. On 7th Street, you might have noticed, and I think Trustee Ron Davis, who's here today, you might have heard or read about the Davis House. It's another Century Project investment, and it's going to be a venue for organizations like yours to be able to have receptions, fundraising events, and to be able to gather in fellowship around your mission and your vision and your values, and that's going to be a great facility for use. And as we get to our GEO project, we're probably getting to something that's a little bit more interesting for the audience today. We're making another major expansion of our GEO Exchange project in the rugby field. So that if you're up at Devil's Kitchen looking back this way, it's that whole grassy area by the pump track there. That'll be a little bit of a mess this year, but it's an important mess because it's going to allow us to greatly expand what is all conservation like in the West. One of the interesting things that President Marshall has identified in our Century Project is that when he called an all-staff meeting at the beginning of the semester, he did a presentation where we looked back in time, decade by decade. And what he focused on wasn't so much what are the milestones that CMU achieved decade by decade, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, but what was happening in the community, the state, and the nation parallel to all the milestones that we've met. And one of the things that was consistent in every single decade were partnerships. I think you all know better than even we do that partnerships on the Western Slope are essential for all kinds of reasons that you'll be talking about today. But we noticed that for CMU it was really important. And when you peel back a layer of those partnerships and you look at what are the most profound and fundamental partnerships that have been there all along, it's not even an embodied partnership, it's the river itself. When we were going on that journey, we were looking at eras of agriculture. I'd look at apples on the table. At one point in time, at the agricultural hub in the valley was on the other end of the valley. It was the apples out in Fruta. And now maybe people think of it as the peaches in Palisade. When you think of the energy, ups and downs and the cycles it's gone through, agritourism, outdoor recreation. The through line between all of those things that we experienced over the decades was water. And at the base of that is the Colorado River. I know if you're from Grand Junction, it becomes tiresome, the cliche of the confluence and the enjoining of these two majestic western rivers, but it really is what this community is predicated on. It's part of the deep fundamental ethos of what we're all about in Grand Junction is the confluence of these rivers. And at the heart of protecting that resource and at the heart of advocating for the things that matter is this organization. And I want to echo what's already been said, which is that the Shoshone Project is emblematic, I think, of, in fact, I can't think of a project that would exemplify true, courageous, brave leadership from your organization than that one. At so many levels, and you know that better than I do. But the other one that maybe is more important for us is you're giving us an opportunity for our partnership with the Water Center here at CMU to be able to educate the next generation of water leaders that are going to walk behind you, that are going to be standing on your shoulders, and are going to be continuing the good work that you do. You know, I think I boil it back to something so simple, but it's everything north of the canal here in the Grand Valley is salt brush. And when I looked at the pictures in the Century Project, when we were digging through in the archives and looking for things, at one point the whole valley looked like that. And it's actually technically true that there wouldn't be a grapevine, a peach tree, an alfalfa field, an apple orchard. There wouldn't be a single shrub or tree alive in this valley if it wasn't for the important infrastructure that's managed part and parcel with the people in this room in coordination with the River District. And I think that helping students understand the profound work that you do and how important it is going to be the most important part of what the Water Center is about. And I don't think we would be able to advance the Water Center to the next level if it wasn't for the partnership with the River District. So we thank you for that. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. President Marshall had to go over on a personal matter to Denver as a family matter. He wouldn't be here. So I appreciate the opportunity to help welcome you to campus. If there's any questions that you have, I'll be around for a little bit. And please do walk around and orient yourself around these Century Project investments we're making because they are setting the future, and we appreciate the partnership. Thank you very much.
Thanks to David, and thanks to the University and President Marshall for having us. My name is Zane Kessler. I work on the policy team at the River District. I'm our Director of Government Relations. I'm excited to introduce virtually our Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District, Joe Neguse, who couldn't be here today because of a shutdown and a handful of other things, but wanted to join us to give some welcoming remarks. So.
Well, good morning. Hopefully you can hear me, Zane, and all of the wonderful, illustrious group of folks that are gathered out there in Grand Junction. My apologies that I couldn't be there in person, as was mentioned, for a variety of different reasons, of course, principally the government shutdown that our country is currently engulfed in. But nonetheless, am very grateful to have the opportunity to join all of you. I want to say thank you to President Marshall, whom I know couldn't join, but very grateful to him and CMU for their leadership with respect to the Water Center and more broadly across any number of different important issues that are impacting folks in the Rocky Mountain West. We're grateful to them. And again, thank you for the opportunity to join you all for a little bit. I think that the name of this conference for this particular year, Across Divides, couldn't be more fitting in light of where we are as a country and where we are as a state. And that particular phrase, across divides, carries great meaning for me, particularly and personally, by virtue of the fact of the position that I'm so privileged to hold. As was mentioned, I represent Colorado's 2nd Congressional District. And so for those of you in the room who happen to be blessed, like I am, to live in the 2nd District in Routt County or Eagle County or Summit or in Larimer or Boulder County or elsewhere, I'm grateful to have the privilege of representing you. And for everyone else, you're all welcome to move. We'd love to have you in the 2nd District. But the 2nd District is very unique because it is the only congressional district in the state of Colorado that traverses a literal divide, the continental divide. I have the privilege of representing much of the Western Slope, but also much of the Front Range in northern Colorado, stretching up to the Wyoming border. And by virtue of that service, it requires of me and of my team the ability to try to build coalitions with folks who may have different worldviews about the various issues that face us as a community, as a state, and as a country. And I think we need more of that now more than ever. You all, of course, are approaching that same set of challenges, I think, with that same zeal of trying to find a way to build cross-party, cross-interest coalitions across divides, if you will, to preserve the lifeline, the most important lifeline in our state and indeed in the West, the Colorado River. I have the privilege of representing the headwaters of the Colorado River. I serve as the co-chair of the Colorado River Caucus in the United States Congress, as well as the ranking member of the Federal Land Subcommittee. And there's perhaps very few issues outside of water issues that I've worked on more during the course of my service in the U.S. Congress. And suffice to say, we find ourselves at a very difficult time. We are, of course, very supportive, myself and my colleagues in the Colorado delegation, of the state's efforts to do everything we can to preserve and protect Colorado's rights as we grapple with the expiration of the compact in the coming year and the reality of the various challenges that face the Colorado River and the very tense negotiations that continue to be ongoing. We were making, I would say, a lot of progress at the federal level over the course of the last few years in, I think, finding some consensus around supporting the efforts of water users, water districts, conservationists, local governments, county governments, and a variety of different stakeholders, not just in Colorado, but across the upper basin and lower basin states. That was perhaps most demonstrated by the investments made in the Inflation Reduction Act just a few short years ago. Billions of dollars to support water conservation projects across the upper basin and lower basin states, and ultimately support innovative approaches to protecting the Colorado River for years to come. The fact that we were able to support across party lines and across literal divides in our state, the Shoshone water rights purchase is perhaps the most salient example. We, of course, now are working very hard to ensure that that particular development, as well as a variety of different others, can be fully realized, notwithstanding the political headwinds that we all are grappling with in Washington, D.C. But from my perspective, my view is that the best role for us as federal policymakers, as lawmakers, is to support the efforts of all of you on the ground. You all know the interests, the needs, and the obstacles of your communities best. And insofar as we can create the space, the flexibility, and the resources at the federal level to be able to support your efforts and perhaps make the case to my colleagues in Washington that emulation of what we're doing right in Colorado could be scaled up, I think we would be well served. So I will continue to sing that mantra and make the case to my colleagues in Washington, D.C., that that's the best approach. And I certainly look forward to supporting all of your efforts. I hope that I can join all of you in person sometime soon. Look forward to my next visit out to Mesa County. But again, grateful to all of you for all that you're doing and happy to entertain any questions you all might have, whether it is about some of the more shall we say, controversial issues that are on the front page of the newspaper, or whether it's about invasive mussels, which happens to be a topic that I know a lot about. Happy to answer any questions you all might have. And again, grateful for the opportunity to come by and welcome you all to this wonderful conference.
Thanks so much, Joe. It's great to see you on, I've got a bit of an echo. Great to see you on the screen. Appreciate the work that you're doing to represent Western Colorado's water interests. Something you and I have talked a good amount about over the years is the interconnectedness between our wildfire issues that continue to persist and seem to get worse with time. You mentioned that you are the founder and co-chair of the Colorado River Caucus in the House. You are also the founder and co-chair of your work on that caucus and again, that interconnectedness between forest health, watershed health, and ultimately water security for our communities here on the Western Slope.
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. As you referenced, about 5 years ago, we created the Bipartisan Wildfire Caucus really as a matter of necessity. And it was in the wake of, at that time, what were the most devastating wildfires in our state's history, the Cameron Peak wildfire and the East Troublesome wildfire, both of which had metastasized over the course of several months, as many of you will remember, in Grand County and in Larimer County, at one point almost converging, right across from Estes Park. And in response to those two conflagrations, we decided in my office that there was a need for some type of convening vehicle within the Congress across party lines to address some of the core challenges that we face in the Rocky Mountain West as it relates to wildfires. And so we decided to create this caucus with my colleague, who at that time was a member of the House, John Curtis. He's now the United States Senator from Utah. And our rule for the caucus, or we only had two rules. You had to, come into the caucus committed to trying to address some of the challenges around wildfire. And number two, you could only join the caucus if you joined with a member of the opposing political party, which unfortunately has kept the caucus smaller than I would have liked. But sign of the times, I suppose. But nonetheless, those members who are members of the caucus, 18 of us, 9 Republicans, 9 Democrats, deeply committed to doing the work necessary to secure generational investments, for example, around forest health and wildfire mitigation and hazardous fuel reduction projects in our national forests and across the landscapes in the Rocky Mountain West, which we know are sorely needed to prevent further to prevent the horrors of metastasizing wildfires down the road. And as you said, obviously the interconnectedness between that and protecting our watersheds, it's obviously very clear to all of you in the room who grapple with this on a day-to-day basis. And we've had some significant difficulties around watershed protection in the wake of both of those fires that I just mentioned, the Cameron Peak and these troublesome fires. So it's been a great, as I said, convening vehicle, and I think an example of a place where there are lessons to be learned in terms of perhaps building coalitions and interesting bedfellows that might develop around issues that, at the end of the day, are not particularly partisan in scope. Certainly shouldn't be.
For that, thank you. One last question. We've got a couple minutes left. I would be remiss if I didn't thank you on behalf of our shared constituents on the Western Slope for your leadership on Shoshone and working with us to continue to try to shake loose those federal investments, the $40 million in IRA dollars. But I also want to thank you for your leadership and your leading the charge in the passage of the reauthorization of the Endangered Fish Recovery Program legislation last Congress. I think you and I know that that is a model program for collaboration amongst strangers and many others that rely on that program. So I wanted to, before we say goodbye, thank you for your leadership on that bill and leave you with a bit of a softball question, if that's okay. It's something I will also ask Congressman Hurd when he's here later this morning, but trying to not get stuck in on the horizon. If you look 10, 20 years down the road, what is your vision for the Colorado River and Colorado's role in shaping its future? And I'll leave you with that and thank you.
Well, I thank you for having me. I certainly, while I appreciate those kind words and your generous remarks, I certainly don't know that that's a softball question. To describe my vision for the future of the Colorado River, for the decade and beyond. Of course, you all are very busy crafting that vision, and I think the operative word that you used is collaboration, right? That's of course reflected in the particular program that you mentioned that we were able to secure reauthorization for. It's reflected in a lot of the work that I've done with Congressman Hurd, whom, as you said, you'll hear from later today. And I think our hope was that we would present together, but the scheduling difficulties, unfortunately, got in the way. But we've done a lot together around snow modeling and a variety of different pieces of legislation that him and I have introduced and pushed forward in the House. In my view, I think, as I think about my vision, right, it's of course first and foremost rooted in protecting Colorado's interests and the interests of the communities that I'm privileged to serve. And my hope is that we can create a level of collaboration for our state, sort of internally within Colorado, that becomes a national model for how do you address very acute challenges facing obviously a very growing population in our state and a variety of different interests and the balancing of equities that all of you are collectively engaged in. At the end of the day, that to me is kind of what it's all about, and none of it's going to be easy. I'm a lawyer by trade, and one of my mentors many years ago, a great man, the late David Getches, who was the dean of the law school at CU, where I matriculated, and is of course one of a legend, if you will, with respect to water law. And you read his treatise or any variety of articles that he had written during his time about the history of the compact, and a century ago, the various sort of very Byzantine path that I think our state and the upper basin and lower states have traversed, as Byzantine as the river, I suppose, getting us to where we are today. It's tough for me to predict the future and how this all sort of shakes out over the next decade. But insofar as we, preserve or rather undergird ourselves with those two twin pillars of protecting our rights and our interests, but investing deeply in collaboration, I think we'll turn out just fine.
Thank you, sir. Great to see you, albeit virtually. Thank you for carving out the time, and hope you have a great day. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me see if I can get slides back up. I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are at the Colorado River District. And I've seen quite a few people continue to filter in. It's great to see the room so full. There's a number of available seats up here in this is mix in with the vacant seats at the table. table, and in the spirit of across collaboration. So we'd like to take just a moment to reach across the table, shake somebody's hand you may not know, and introduce yourself. Okay. All right, so to bring us back, if you could please take your seats. Okay, let's wrap it up. I'd like to bring us back and talk a little bit more about who we are. I'm glad that worked. That was a little bit of an experiment. Yeah. We are at the Colorado River District. We represent 15 counties in western Colorado, and what you're looking at up here is a map of those counties, stretching from the north and Grand and Summit, from Grand and Summit in the north to Delta and Montrose in the south. This is the area we serve, and it represents the heart of Colorado's western slope. Our responsibility is unique, and while much of Colorado's population and political power is concentrated on the Front Range here on the western slope, is where about 70% or 65% in this map shown of the main stem of the Colorado River flows originate. Our charge is to protect those water resources for the benefit of the people who live and work and farm here, and to ensure Colorado keeps the water to which we're legally entitled. We serve a wide range of communities, from farmers and ranchers to municipalities, recreational economies, and most importantly, communities and families who depend on healthy rivers and reliable water supplies. We're guided in this work by our board of directors, one representative from each of these 15 counties, and their leadership ensures the River District's direction reflects the diversity of our region. And just as importantly, our priorities are shaped by the voices of water users and by conversations like the ones we have here today. So thank you again for coming. And our mission is simple but clear: to lead in the protection, conservation, use, and development of the water resources of the Colorado River for the welfare of the district, and to safeguard for Colorado all waters of the Colorado River to which the state is entitled. And what that means in practice really is twofold. It's about defending Colorado's water interests in state, federal, and interstate arenas. And it's about working directly with local communities to help them adapt to real challenges of drought, climate change, aging infrastructure, and growing demand. So this mission drives everything we do, from legal advocacy to funding community projects, providing timely and accurate information about what's happening in our region and beyond. We recently adopted a new strategic plan that helps us deliver on that mission. It was adopted and approved by our board of directors this year. It takes us through 2030, and it looks ahead, and with three primary pillars of community protection as a top priority to ensure that people of Western Colorado have secure, reliable water supplies for communities and agriculture and local economies. And that means, like I said, advocacy, investment, and ensuring decisions made far away from here don't adversely harm our communities. As a trusted resource, the River District is committed to being a source of credible and transparent information on water issues through publications, outreach, and events like these. And as a recognized leader on Colorado River matters, we're doubling down as our role as a leader in the state, regional, and national conversations about the future of the Colorado River. Shawnee water rights preservation is one example, but it extends to shaping the operational guidelines in post-2026 and beyond. So together, these pillars provide a clear framework of river districts, how the river district will work to meet these challenges ahead and continue to fulfilling this mission on behalf of Western Colorado water users. So as we move through today's seminar, you'll see these themes reflected across the presentations and discussions. Protecting communities, providing trusted information, and leading in the broader Colorado River conversation. At the end of the day, the work isn't abstract, it's about safeguarding our water, so the next generation has the same opportunities, livelihoods, and landscapes that we've enjoyed. And to start us with that, right here in conversations like we'll have today, I would like to set the stage a little bit more for the foundation of this. Of course, it's about the water itself and understanding the realities of our hydrology and how much water is really available compared to what we expect. It's critical to every conversation here, of course. So to help us ground this seminar in science, I'm pleased to introduce Raquel Flinker, my colleague, our Director of Interstate and Regional Water Resources at the Colorado River District. Welcome, Raquel.
I'll leave it there. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's really nice to see so many familiar faces. And let's dive into water year 2025 and talk about what the expectation was versus the reality. So here's a summary of water year 2025. The figure shows what the snowpack was looking like compared to average conditions, average being 91 through 2020. And you can see from this figure that conditions were better the northern you were on the basin. The further south you moved, the worse conditions looked. And in the south, they looked pretty bad. I'll talk about this. So the spring, we had very dry conditions, some of the driest on record, and that tanked the water supply forecast. The summer continued to be dry. We had wildfires throughout the basin here in Colorado and within our district, one of the largest fires, the Lee Fire. In the fall, we got some precipitation. We had some monsoons later in the season, and that did help things out. So let's focus in the river district's boundaries. So this is a similar figure. So the numbers here show 2025 compared to 1991 to 2020 average. You're seeing snow water equivalent, and this is on April 2nd, which was when snow generally peaked in Colorado. That peak happened 10 days earlier than usual, and if you look within our district, you see that, yes, we still have this trend north to south. Things were below average, but they weren't terribly below average, right? You're seeing high 70s to 90-ish% of average. So, all right, we talked about snow. Now let's look into water supply forecasts. So this is stream forecast, 50% exceedance probability. The numbers here are the forecasts for each of the basins you're looking at for 2025, also compared to average, so 91 to 2020. These numbers are what was forecasted by the NRCS on April 1st. And you can see that these numbers look pretty similar to what we were seeing during peak SWE, right? So in our district, high 70s and in the 90s of projected forecasts. The little dots you see on this map are snowtail sites. And I just wanted to point out that the Grand Mesa, the orange dots between the Colorado and the Gunnison, really did not do well in 25. So fast forwarding to June, water supply forecasts looked completely different. And if you were expecting the conditions you thought would maybe happen based in the April forecast, reality was very different. So here's a similar graph than before. Yampa White reduced from over 90% of average of predicted prediction of what the stream flow was going to be to 48. On the Colorado headwaters, that dropped from over 90 to 72. In the Gunnison Basin, from high 70s to 52. And I would like to see a show of hands, who in this room looks at stream flow forecasts throughout the year? All right, quite a number of you. And who uses these forecasts for some type of decision-making around water operations, channel, reservoir, users, on the ground, producers, right? And I know from the River District, we also operate reservoirs, and it was a challenge this year. And yes, forecasts aren't perfect. No one can predict the future. It is a great tool. It's the best tool we have. But this year, with a really dry spring, it was very challenging. So this is a graph that the Colorado Climate Center produces. It plots each year on precipitation on the x-axis and temperature on the y-axis. So the further you move to the right, it's wetter, and the further up you go, it's drier. And the quadrant on the top left is hot, dry conditions. And 2025 fell within this quadrant. We had the 7th warmest year and the 9th driest year. And I should emphasize that this graph is for the Colorado drainage within the state of Colorado, so Western Slope. For comparison, 2025 was similar to 2012, if you remember that. It was also similar to 2021. And 2002 was the driest year we've had on record. 2018 was the hottest year we've had on record. And I really like this graph, also by the Climate Center. This is showing precipitation in the state of Colorado, December through July. The reason why they're cutting off October, November was that October and November was not bad. We got decent snow. But starting in December, things start. So the colors are drier conditions. This is precipitation. And the greener colors are wetter. And you can see this very clear divide between the west side of the state and the Front Range. Here on the west, we had record or near record. You can see the dark brown on this figure is record dryness. And if we're looking just at these months, we had the 11th driest on record for the whole state. So to look at the basin as a whole and what happened throughout the year, this is precipitation accumulation, wetter than average. Red colors are drier than average. So this is what October and November looked like. We have quite a bit of blue on this map. But when we start moving through time, this is what we get. Things just started to dry out, and they never came back from these dry conditions. So that's what we had for 2025. And if we're trying to look into the future, a positive note is that the soil moisture currently is not terrible. Here within our district, conditions are average or above average, so the precipitation we got recently has helped out conditions, and it's a good thing moving into the winter and starting from at least a somewhat positive place. So if we look at the temperature outlook, October, November, and December, the blue box is the state of Colorado, and what the forecast is showing is that we'll have above average temperatures, so warmer than normal for October, November, December. If we look further into the future, January, February, March, equal chances, which maybe is a good thing looking into the winter, but it's also really hard to tell. If we look at precipitation, we are looking at drier conditions, October, November, December for the state of Colorado. And further into the future, also equal chances. So for the next 3 months, the forecast says warmer and drier. But into the future, could be different. All right, let's look now